I'm David Lombardo, and this is WCNY's The Capitol Press Room. And we're going to share a recent excerpt from a Dispatches from Planet Albany conversation where we explored legislation designed to give the public greater awareness of how lobbyists and their clients are looking to influence Albany by requiring them to disclose whether they support a bill, support it with amendments, oppose it, or oppose it if amendments are not made. To discuss the proposal, we spoke with Doug Clark, a co-managing partner at the lobbying firm of Shenker, Russo, Clark. On its face, is this something you care about? Is this something you support? Is this something you oppose?
What it's trying to get at is, and it says this in the sponsor's memo, it's trying to rebuild people's faith in the institutions of government. And one of the things that is perceived out there is that there are these conversations that are going on between certain people, and in this case it's lobbyists and members, and we don't know what's being said there. Wouldn't the world be better if everybody knew what was being said in these meetings? Mm-hmm. And when you take it from the perspective of trying to rebuild trust in institutions, there's nothing wrong with that. We follow the law. If this passes, we'll follow this law. It's when you look at the details and how they do it, it starts to become difficult to follow. By that, I mean, you went through the four options that you have. Those are the only four options that you have. Right now, the way we operate is whenever we go in on a meeting on a bill, we report that meeting. The law defines lobbying as an attempt to influence. So theoretically, we could go in and have a conversation about a bill just to informational, find out about the bill. What are you trying to do? What does this mean? How does this work? You haven't openly said, you should do this, can you try that, we think this. You're just trying to find out what's going on. A technical reading of the law would say, I don't have to report that meeting because I was not lobbying in that meeting. We report that meeting because it could be argued that our mere presence as lobbyists, because the commission also takes the position that lobbyists are always lobbyists, you're never not a lobbyist. My mere presence there is an attempt to influence. But under the terms of this bill, I would have to say from that meeting one of these four things right away.
And should there be another option then? And if so, what would the option be? Is it information gathering, information sharing? Because if it's that second option, information sharing, I could imagine a world in which that would be something that would blend over to influence.
Right. And I think that's why they only have the four, because if you have a fifth option that is something that isn't support, oppose, or something else.
Maybe it was just to hand over a bag of cash.
Well,
JK. William Boylan's not here anymore.
Oh. I was thinking Tony Seminario, but okay.
Okay, yeah. Well, so you predate me a little bit.
But if you have this nebulous fifth option, the concern would be that it would be the exception that eats the whole. Everybody would just go to, well, if it's, let's just say it's monitoring. Let's just say it's informational. To be safe, I'm never wrong if I just say I'm monitoring or I'm informational. And that doesn't get at the goal of what the sponsors want, which is to have better insight into people's positions on things.
And to be clear, it's not what that lobbyist's position really is, right? I mean, nobody cares. I mean, I care, Doug, what your positions are.
Well, thank
you.
But
most people are more interested in the people that are paying you for this. And do you think they would be concerned about having their positions aired out like this? Because I know when I go to report on a bill, the first thing I do, if this bill has existed for more than a few days, is see if anybody is registered to lobby on it. And I can usually make some good inferences about what this position is. But is there a reason why some of these parties might not want to have their positions known or want that ambiguity that they're allowed now?
So I can say, back in the day when I worked inside, were there instances where lobbyists would share their memos with one side and not the other? Yeah, sure. Was that really annoying? Yeah, because it made me look bad as a staffer because I didn't have the information and they didn't have it. But sometimes it's not just the client or the lobbyist that doesn't want the position. And there's the fact that their position may not neatly fit into one of those four categories. So by forcing them into one of those four categories, you're mischaracterizing a more nuanced position.
Sure.
This bill, I tried this line on before I came here, so and it didn't really land. But it's like the Siskel and Ebert of lobbying. Everything isn't thumbs up or thumbs down. There's things in between, and they do recognize that to some degree, but it's not that simple. So, and then there's the idea of how exactly do you report this stuff? And let's take the current debate about what is going on with the CLCPA. So let's say I am an environmental group, and how do I report my position on this? First of all, there's nothing in existence for me to report on, yet you have to report on things that aren't in existence yet, but they are contemplated legislation. So I have to report that I am lobbying on that topic. Do I say that I oppose? What am I opposing?
Whatever Marie French would put in her Politico Pro story.
Well, exactly. Or am I supporting the following of the current law? So when you get to the nitty gritty of it, it becomes difficult to characterize somebody's position, not only just in the way that they want it to be characterized, but in a way that's actually correct and useful for people who are looking at it.
Do we allow a narrative to be inserted, or is that not feasible and practical given the extent of bills and opportunities to lobby in New York?
I think that would. I mean, I'm sure you've been to the Lobby Commission colleagues website. It's not the greatest website in the world.
No.
If you're going to start putting large reams of information on there about how I feel about a particular bill, I don't know that they could practically handle it. But also, I don't think you get at the goal of the bill, which is kind of a quick and dirty look at where do people stand on things.
Well, can I interest you in the Jim and Barbara Lombardo movie trailer review option, which is, I think, and I could butcher this, so sorry, Dad and Mom, but I believe it's 2 thumbs if they see a trailer. That means they're going to go see it in theaters. 1 thumb means they're going to go wait for it to come to TV. Sideways is, I think, they're on the fence, and then thumbs down is they're not going to see it. Period. Is that something we could translate into this?
Or American Bandstand.
Okay.
It's got a great beat, but I'll
do the arm thing, like that. What's it called? That thing you do in the end when they're doing that.
Yeah. Could you try to concoct something that encompasses all of the various nuances of people's opinions on things? You can try. You're not going to get there. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't pursue legislation that tries to make things better for the public.
What about covering more than just standalone bills, which this bill includes? It talks about appropriation bills. It talks about certain components within bills, and then there's separate bills that deal with lobbying on governmental appointments, like my dear friend Hector LaSalle, whose poster we still have up here.
This doesn't have the appointments in it. That's
right. It's a separate bill. That's a Gianaris McDonald bill that has stalled in the past. I mean, what do you think about that type of specificity that some proposals want to bring to this?
Well, so this does try to bring that specificity to appropriations.
Right.
And there it's even muddier in terms of how do you accurately report this. It's easier for things that are, traditional appropriations, like school aid, things that are traditional and are in there. If there's something that pops up in one of the one House bills, you could point to that. But absent that, a lot of the lobbying that is done for not-for-profits and capital appropriations isn't something that is something you can point to in the first instance or the second instance, or even when the budget's done, because you're still going in and talking to the legislators about maybe pots of money that they have access to, or the governor and pots of money that they have access to. And in this instance, you're not really gaining a whole lot because you already have the public monies requirements that you have to, if you're lobbying for public monies, you have to say that you're lobbying for public money. So that's kind of already baked into what you have to report. Trying to dig further, this starts becoming traps for the unwary or for people who aren't lawyer lobbyists like myself, or have a compliance practice like we do, where we can walk you through and do all of these things. If you're just a small not-for-profit trying to get, your swimming pool redone, chances are you're going to mess this up.
And then Dave Grandow to the rescue. One of the things I was struck by about this, though, was it seems like there's not a lot of wiggle room for or need for regulations to implement something like this. It seems like they try to spell out a lot of this in the bill. And do you think the better approach might have been, we want to accomplish XYZ, and we are empowering COLIG to begin the rule and regulation promulgation process so that they can do something like this with the inputs of the Doug Clarks of the world and the people who are experiencing this, as well as the good government groups like Reinvent Albany, so that they can keep pushing for the disclosures they want? I mean, does that type of flexibility make sense in this, or is this an area where you'd rather have everything spelled out in advance in the legislation than who knows what those bureaucrats and Sandy Berland are going to get up to?
Well, I mean, I always like to say a vague disclaimer is nobody's friend.
Okay.
And so to the extent that it can be spelled out from the beginning, that's better. Even if I don't like it, if it's clear, that's better.
And easier to lobby for with amendments, opposed if amendments not adopted.
Well, and even within that, there's different kinds of amendments, right, that you lobby for. One of the big issues, a couple of the big issues, AI, data protection, things like that. There's these very big bills that touch on all kinds of industries and everything. And within those bills, they may be appropriate for some industries. They may not be appropriate for others. If I go in and I say, I'd like an amendment, can you just take us out of it? Do I support that with an amendment? Well, sort of, but
ultimately you would oppose it if that amendment is not adopted.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty clear. Like, we had the cookware industry on the show recently, and they don't like this bill dealing with getting PFAS out of various things made and sold in New York, including Teflon in cookware. And I imagine it'd be pretty simple for them to say, yep, we oppose this if you don't carve us out of it. And that's option D. I mean, that seems pretty self-explanatory.
But if you're looking for more clarity for the public, I think there's a difference between I oppose AI bills and I oppose it only because it doesn't fit for me. What you also have to look at is how is this going to be used? If you are, say, an unpopular industry, let's pick somebody who's not my client. So
octopus farming.
You're opposed to the octopus farming bill. Now you've put a target on yourself for people to go to your octopus farm.
Which don't exist yet.
But, you could be exposing people to more public scrutiny than perhaps they signed up for.
And that was Doug Clark, a co-managing partner with the lobbying firm of Shenker, Russo, and Clark, who spoke with us for a recent episode of Dispatches from Planet Albany, which you can hear in its entirety at capitalpressroom.org or wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Thanks for listening to today's edition of the Capitol Press Room. For an insider take on what's happening in state government, check out our Dispatches from Planet Albany show, available wherever you get podcasts or at capitalpressroom.org.
Join us again for Capitol Press Room, a production of WCNY Connected, Syracuse.